Okay, we are live. Let's do this. I have mascara under my eye. I just washed my face because I had makeup on before. So, my face is washed. We are going to put makeup on and read scary stories. All of these are going to come off for Scary for Kids, which is the website I used when I was reading my scary stories for Halloween. This should be fun. I want to try to read stories I have not read before because it only makes sense. So I'm gonna put my hair back-ish, tie it a couple times so it doesn't get in my face. Oh my word. So the first story, I gotta pick. We'll just go creepy stories. Makes sense. Why not? There's this one called The Keyhole. So first, this is not everything. I don't know where the rest of it is. I usually do color corrector. My color corrector's not in my box. Box. That's an envelope. Box. And color corrector's not in there. Oh, it's because it's something I found on my laptop. Yeah, this happens. And I want to put this necklace on. That way I don't lose it. Okay, so The Keyhole is a creepy story about a man who stays in a strange hotel and encounters something very strange. I have heard this one before. This one seems to be a very popular one. Going in with green color corrector. And a man went to a hotel, walked up to the front desk to check in. Now, the woman at the desk gave him his key and told him on the way to his room, there was a door, had no number on it, and it was locked. He was to remain out of that room. He was not allowed to even look into the keyhole. But, man was so tired. And under those circumstances, he decided, okay, I'll just follow the rules. And he went to bed. During the night, he got curious. But that curiosity wouldn't leave him alone. And the room with the no number in the door, it seemed strange to him. He walked down the hall, and then he tried the handle. Sure enough, it was locked, just like the woman said. He bent down to look through the keyhole, and cold air passed through it, which chilled his eye. And then he saw a hotel bedroom, kind of like his, and in the corner was a woman whose skin was completely white. And she was leaning her head against the wall, facing away from the door. So he stared back in confusion for a while. He wanted to knock, but then he decided not to. Concealer. And the next day, he went by and looked through the keyhole again to see if the woman was still there. To his surprise, he couldn't see anything but red. So, after this, he's all, whatever, I'll go ask the woman at the front desk. Why? And he goes, oh my gosh, I'm using my fingers for this. And she goes, well, did you look through the keyhole? He goes, yeah. And she's like, well, I might as well tell you the story now. And he goes, what story? She told the man that a couple used to stay in that room, the numberless door. And one day, the husband murdered his wife in that room, and her ghost haunts that room. All people could say was that the woman, her eyes were completely red. So when he looked through the keyhole, he was looking straight into the woman's eyes. That's not that creepy. I wouldn't want to do that. Personally, he should have just listened. Maybe he would have been good. This next one is called The Lost Phone. Now, The Lost Phone is a short, creepy story about a woman who misplaces her mobile phone and tries calling her number. Oh my word. One evening, a woman came home late. Steffi's getting ready for bed, so if you hear her yelling, that's why. Highlighter. She was coming home late for work. She put her bag down on the kitchen table and started rooting through it. And then she realized she didn't have her cell phone. She couldn't remember the last time she had it. So she's like, must have lost it on my way back home. So she went into her hallway, picked up her home phone, and decided, I'm going to call my phone. Someone answered, and they didn't talk back. The woman said hello, but no one would answer her. But she could hear someone breathing on the other end. She said, hello, can you hear me? There was still no answer, but the breathing got heavier. And the woman asked again, can you hear me? And then someone in a low voice goes, I can hear you. Then they hung up. After that, the woman called her phone again, but no one picked up. Eventually, she got frustrated. It was late, so she decided to go to bed. She went upstairs to her room, and she was shocked to find her mobile phone on the nightstand. And it was on silent. Oh, that's so creepy. There was someone in her house. Okay. This next one's called Imaginary Friends. I don't think I've read this one. Okay, this one says it takes 12 minutes to read. This is going to be a long story. It's actually not that long. Many children have imaginary friends when they're young, but some kids have scary imaginations. And this is a collection of true stories about children with pals who may or may not be a figment of their creative minds. Okay, this one's called Jenny. Do they all have names? Oh, they do. Okay, this one's called Jenny. And it goes, when I was 4 years old, my mom and I moved into a large colonial house that was built in the 1800s. My mom always had a weird feeling about this house, but there was just a little off section in the basement, and we never knew why it was there. My mother told me soon after we moved into the house, I suddenly had an imaginary friend. One day, out of the blue, I went to find my eyeshadow. Told her that I was playing with a little girl named Jenny. She thought it was just a phase, didn't pay much attention to it. I told her Jenny wanted me to go let the cat go to the basement so she could play with it. So the mother let her allow the cat to go downstairs. That's a pretty specific request. I would say no, but you know. It never came back, and this creeped her out. A few days later, I told her Jenny wanted me to go to the basement to play with her. My mother refused. She told me to go back upstairs to bed. I did, and when I woke up the next morning, I had deep scratches on my back and legs. My mother decided to research the house. She found an old picture of the house and the family who lived there. She showed me a picture and asked if I recognized them. There were 7 little girls in the picture, and without hesitation, I pointed to one of them. The names of the family were all written on the back, and the girl I pointed out to was named Jenny. My mother got scared, and during her research, she discovered that the little girl named Jenny went down to the basement one day and was never seen again. The family never found her, and they moved shortly after. That's kind of weird. Okay, after I identified the girl in the picture, it was way too much for the mom to handle. So we moved out of the house and found somewhere else to live. When I turned 18, she told me all about what happened in the house. It still scares me when I think about it. I mean, it's weird. Okay, this next one's called Don't Tell Anyone My Name. So this one says, my niece had an imaginary friend, but she wasn't allowed to tell anyone his name. She said he told her everyone would get scared if they knew. We kept asking her, but she would never tell anyone his name. Then one day her mom and I were in the hallway and my niece didn't realize it. She started talking to her imaginary friend and called him by his name. To this day, whenever I think about it, I'm still creeped out that the imaginary friend's name was Lucifer. I think that's supposed to be scary. I think it's supposed to be the kid is playing with the devil. But that's out there. That's not scary. It sounds like a television show plot that's been used way too many times. Okay, this next one's called Funny Faces. I think I've read this one. Before. This particular story. Okay. I was staying in my aunt's house when I saw my 4-year-old cousin April sitting on the stairs, not in the stairs. She was not inside the stairs, guys. Okay. And she was making funny faces. I asked her, "What are you doing?" And she pointed up to a beam running parallel to the staircase and said, "I'm doing what the lady's doing." And I asked, "Is she making funny faces?" And she replied with, "Yeah." And I was about to go upstairs when something stopped me in my tracks. She said her braid is around her neck. Oh, that is creepy. Yep, I've read this one before. I don't know why that one's so creepy. It just is. Okay. The lady is hanging by her braid, and she's making funny faces at me. April started making a funny face. Her eyes were wide open, her mouth was open, and her tongue was sticking out. And then I realized it was a face of someone who was strangled to death. That's actually quite creepy. That would indeed freak me out. Okay, this next one's called Matt. When I was growing up, there was a girl in my neighborhood who was very weird. Wow, that's how you start a story. Okay. All the other kids were freaked out by her. One day, she told the other kids that in the forest behind her house were where the dead, bloody people were. When they heard this, the kids were freaked out and told their parents. Their fathers had to go and search the forest just in case. They all came back, and all they came back was candy wrappers and beer bottles. After all that, all the neighborhood kids refused to go near her, including me. After a few years, my parents divorced. On the day the moving came to take my mother's things out of the house, the girl came out of nowhere and told me that Matt didn't like my parents, like that my parents were getting divorced. I had no idea who this Matt was. Even though I stopped being friends with her, my dad was still friends with her parents. My dad told me that Matt was her imaginary friend. Her parents told him about the problems they were having. Matt was often too physical. They claimed that Matt controlled the lights and could even make the power go out. They said Matt also knocked on doors at night. If he was ignored, he'd start banging on the doors louder. Wow. After a few years, my dad decided that he would invite the girl and her parents over to our house. I begged my dad not to do this, but he said it would be nice to catch up with them. When they came over that night, my dad told me to entertain the little girl. I brought her up to my bedroom. She seemed like she was acting normal. She even told me how nice my room was. However, I was still creeped out by her. She was just sitting in the middle of my floor. I tried to put on a movie on the DVD player, but all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in the weirdest voice she could muster, she said, "Matt's here." At this exact moment, the light started to flicker on and off. I got scared. I ran out of my room and I was crying in fear. Her parents came running up the stairs, dragging their daughter out of my room and took her to her home. Weeks after, I refused to sleep in my own bedroom. I haven't heard from this family since. I heard that Matt still controls the lights, but I don't know if he's still around to this day. Whenever the lights begin to flicker or a light bulb blows, it still freaks me out. Okay. That is kind of creepy, but nothing too scary. Oh, my word. This next one's called The Dead Boy. Okay, so my boyfriend is homicide detective. And a few years ago, he was investigating a murder of a little boy. They still hadn't found his body. The mother said the little boy broke down and admitted she had killed him and hid his body under their old trailer. When the police went out to search for this trailer, they found there was a new family living in it. So, the family said that their son had an imaginary friend who lived under the trailer and would come up to see him. The cops found the body of the dead boy just under the little boy's room. That's creepy. Not too bad. This next one's called Kelly. When my daughter was 3, she had an imaginary friend named Kelly who lived in her closet. Really? The closet? Okay, it's fine. Apparently, closets are the pinpoint of every scary story. Okay, anyway, they had a daughter whose friend was named Kelly who lived in the closet. She said that Kelly played with her and sat in a little rocking chair when she slept. 2 years later, when we were watching a horror movie, my daughter looks and says, "That looks like Kelly." "Kelly who?" I asked. You know Kelly," she replied. "The dead girl that lives in my closet." Straight to the point. It's a dead girl in the closet. That's all that's there to that story. This next one's called The Girl in the Lake. Using this color now. When I was a kid, we would often go camping on Lake Deering in New Hampshire. On one day, when I was 6 years old, I fell off a dock and plunged into the water. I couldn't swim, but while I was underwater, I distinctly remember seeing a girl down there who told me to look towards the sun and keep kicking and I'd be fine. I ended up swimming to the surface, and just in time for my grandfather to grab me and pull me back onto the dock. I found out later that the little girl that I saw had drowned in the lake near the very same spot. Well, that's kind of creepy. Okay, this next one's called Serena. I asked my niece to draw a picture of her imaginary friend, Serena. She is 4 years old, and when she sleeps over, she and Serena play in the living room. She says Serena likes my house. I shudder at the image that what would have been if she didn't. Apparently, this is the picture the kid drew. I gotta show you, because apparently that makes the story creepier. That's all that's there, and then that's where the story ends. So, there's that. This next one's called... Oh, sorry. Laptop's getting in the way. This next one's called Jessica. That's not the right palette. I'll open a different one. I'm going to go into this one. Pinks and oranges. Okay. So when I was a baby, my older sister Julia had an imaginary friend. Her name was Jessica. She said when Jessica got mad, her eyes would turn green and her voice grew deeper. She was Julia's friend for a long time, but then things started to get weird after, well, my parents began to believe that our house was haunted. Oh, of course, because everything starts after your parents think a house is haunted. Okay. One night, my mom was putting me to bed, and I began to cry and point at the corner. My mom tried to comfort me, but I kept crying, and at this point, I kept pointing at something in the same corner. All of a sudden, my sister walks into a room and pointed at the corner and yelled, "Jessica, stop it." And immediately, I stopped crying. And Julia says, sometimes Jessica likes to put on a scary mask and scare people. My mom was a little freaked out by this and said, "Tell Jessica if she can't play nice, she can't play here at all." Eventually, my sister grew out of her imaginary friend and stopped mentioning her. A few years later, my sister Abby began to talk, and she told my mom she had a friend that no one could see. She said her imaginary friend's eyes turned green when she was upset. My mother asked her about her friend's name, and she replied, "Jessica." Oh, that's weird. Okay, this next one's called Scotty. This one's it's a little bit of a long one. Let's do this. Back when I was in elementary school, my best friend was named Ryan. And when we were on 6 or 7 one day, there was a new kid in our class. His name was Andrew. He had just moved in from the States, and he was socially awkward and was used to sitting alone. And he appeared to be enraged during these conversations he would have with himself. Wow. Ryan and I decided to befriend him and invited him over to his sleepover, to a sleepover they were having. The whole day went without incidents. It was good fun. And Andrew seemed different at home. He was more relaxed, more comfortable, more normal. The night we went to sleep in his bedroom. So they're at Andrew's. Okay. Are they? Yeah. Okay. So Andrew invites them to his house for a sleepover. I confused myself because I didn't understand the entire sentence. But they're at Andrew's house. So when they went to sleep in his room, which was in the basement, the closet's in the basement. They're the pinpoints for scary stories. Basements are just creepy. But anyway, I remember lying there on the floor and my buddy Ryan was asleep near me and Andrew was across the room on the couch. And it was dark. I could only see his outline. All of a sudden, Andrew started making some eerie, high-pitched noises. Oh, that's when you get the heck out of that basement. It sounded like a steaming tea kettle. He stood up and still letting out this high-pitched screeching. I saw him walk towards me. I kicked Ryan to wake him up, and we both were freaking out. Andrew kept walking until he was standing over us, and he just knelt down and slowly let the screech die down. Ryan and I looked at each other, unsure what we were supposed to do. But suddenly, Andrew grabbed our arms, started squeezing like he was trying to crush them, and in a disturbing voice said, "Scotty wants you both to leave." So I ripped my arm out of his grasp, and so did Ryan. Andrew got up again and just stood there staring at us, letting out a high-pitched, evil laugh. And we both got up and suggested going to Andrew's mom's room to wake her up, but before they could take a step, Andrew just started screaming at the top of his lungs. His mom came sprinting down and turned on the light. When she saw that Andrew had scratches on his arm and his face looked deathly pale, his mom laid him on the ground and held him down. And she was trying to speak over his screeches, and all she was saying, Andy, it's okay. Scott isn't real. Okay. She turned to us and told us to go upstairs, put our coats on. She was going to take us home. A few weeks later, we didn't talk to Andrew at school. Eventually, we asked him, and he said, "Oh, it's okay now. You won't see Scotty anymore. No one will." Needless to say, that was the end of that, and we never talked to him again. We ended up getting removed from our school because he attacked a kid with a tree branch at recess. Okay, so the kid was possessed, I guess. Okay, this one's called George. This one is short. This isn't the palette I want anymore. I want this one. I'm going to go with the black. We were watching a scary movie when my nephew looked up and said, "What's George doing on TV?" I asked him what he meant by that, and he said, "The boy on the TV looks like George." I asked him who George was, and he said he lives above my bed, and every night when the lights are off, he talks to me, but I can't hear him. I asked him to draw me a picture. He drew a small boy with black holes for eyes and no teeth who was bleeding from the neck. "That's George," he said. Holy cow. Short, but that is creepy. I would not want some kid to draw that for me, and I'd be like, "What should I ask?" Okay, this next one's called Tuna. This one's very short. My little brother has an imaginary friend named Tuna. He said she was the size of a thimble. When he stopped mentioning her, We asked him what happened to her, and he said he ate her. So does this kid have a weird sense of humor? I don't understand. But that is quite all right with me. I do not care at all. That one, I think, what I think that story was trying to do was do a jump scare kind of approach. Like, he ate her. Had it been written a different way, maybe that punchline would have been creepy. But for me, that's not scary. It's weird. And it seems like it's supposed to be humorous when I know it's not. But, you know. This last one from this one is called The Evil. Okay, so my daughter has some imaginary friends. She's had some for a couple years. Their names are Dodo, Gano, Gana. It's Ghana. I can't pronounce that. I'm gonna mess it up, but it's fine. And The Evil. They just sort of appear out of nowhere. They appeared out of nowhere. When she was almost 3 years old, it started with Dodo and Gana. And then a few months later, she came up to me with a creepy, expressionless face and told me, the evil's coming over today. I just walked away, and it turned out the evil was actually a nice imaginary friend. She just had an unfortunate name. Oh, that one's cute! That's not scary, that's cute. I like that one. These are supposed to be creepy stories. Literally, they say creepy stories. I'm not being creeped out. I've already read The Perfect Girl, which is the next one on this list. I will not read that one again. We have Jack of Hearts. This one's an 11-minute story. They give you an estimate of how long this takes to read, but I'm a slow reader and I'm doing makeup, and I can't pay attention to both. The Jack of Hearts is a scary story about a young girl who goes to summer camp, and she was terrified when some of her friends start to go missing, and it seems there is a serial killer on the loose. This kind of reminds me of, what's that movie? I think it's called Cabin in the Woods. There's a lot of movies called Cabin in the Woods, but it's basically they pick their horror movie. They pick certain things. Yeah. I can't remember. I think it's called Cabin in the Woods. Wait a minute. I've seen a lot of movies. Yeah. Cabin in the Woods. It's a 2011 scary movie. Yeah. 2012? 2011? That's the one I'm talking about. They pick their scary movie and they get killed off. They don't go missing, but the other people think they go missing, but they're getting killed off. That's just what this sounds like. So, yeah. Okay. There was a girl named Mila whose parents were sending her away to summer camp. She heard vague rumors about kids at that school and about strange things that would happen when they went to camp. She pleaded for her parents not to let her go and to let her stay home. But that summer, they forced her. You're 12 years old, her father said. You need some kind of nonsense, and you need to get over this nonsense and to act like an adult. You're telling a 12-year-old to act like an adult. Oh my gosh. Okay. I have a different opinion on that. They should at least be able to act like kids and make their own decisions. Kids are not stupid. But when Mila arrived at camp, she was shocked to find such a, oh my word, I hate this word because I can't pronounce it. Decrepit. I'm 100% sure it just means it's a rundown state. I've looked up this word so many times. I'm 100% sure I just misspelt it. I did. But it was in a decrepit state. I think that's how you say it, decrepit. Spelt it wrong, but it knows what I'm talking about. Dilapidated? I'm going to turn this up so you guys can hear this.
Dilapidated.
Dilapidated? Basically it means in state of despair, ruined, a result of age neglect. If it looks like that, don't send your kids. Okay. The cabins were infested with termites. The bunk beds were lumpy and uncomfortable, and the bed sheets, they smelled like they were revolting smelling. They were revolting. And they were covered in yellow stains. Oh my gosh. This is not a nice camp. There was only one toilet in the whole camp, and it was outdoors. It was more than it was a little more than a wooden hut with several stalls inside. They looked like they hadn't been cleaned for months, and the stench was atrocious. My word. Worst of all, the doors on each of the stalls had a hole in it, cut into the shape of a heart. You had to stuff the hole with toilet paper every time you went to the bathroom, or else the kid would be able to peek and watch you poop. Oh, that's freaking weird. Despite these conditions, Mila, it's Mila, I'm going to mispronounce it this entire time, so don't mind me, managed to make friends with some of the other girls. Late one night after the lights turned out, her best friend, Svetlana, it's Svetlana. I can't pronounce any of this. We're going to go with this. Cool. They had to go to the toilet. Mila decided to wait outside, waited for her friend to finish. She strolled around, listening to the wind blowing and the trees, and she looked up at the stars. Suddenly, by the corner of her eye, she noticed a shadow moving and in the forest. She only caught a glimpse for a second before it disappeared behind the trees. But it seemed to be a shadow of a man. Wow. She dismissed it as a trick of light and went back to the outdoor of the toilet. How do you miss-see or have a trick of light make you think there's a man? I mean, coat racks would do that. Coats. I've often mistaken these coats for people. It happens. But outside, looks like a man walking. That's not possible. In my opinion, it's not possible. Might be. Who knows? No way, it's a trick of light. Mila was a little offended because she assumed that her friend had gone back to the cabin without her. And she didn't see her. She knocked on the bathroom door and told her friend to hurry up. There was no answer. She opened the door, went inside, but all the stalls were empty. And that's when she got offended. However, she got back to the cabin and found her bed was empty. She still hadn't returned. Nobody knew where she was. The girls waited an hour, but they started to get worried. Mila woke up one of the counselors and told them that, what's her name? Svetlana had disappeared. The entire camp roused out of bed, and all of them went to look for this missing girl. The counselor went to the toilet with a flashlight and searched each stall, but there was nothing there. There was no sign of her. But on the floor, they noticed a playing card. It was the Jack of Hearts. The counselor spent all night looking for the girl, but she was nowhere to be found, and someone suggested that she might have run away from the camp. Her parents were called, and they too began to worry. The next morning, when the girl didn't show up, the other kids were terrified that the girl had disappeared, and many of them wanted to go home. Let the kids go home. Some kids called their parents and persuaded them to pick them up. If you tell me Mila's parents said no. Okay, the staff of the summer camp decided to try to calm everyone down, and it was decided after lights out, no one could go to the toilet unless they were accompanied by an adult. I get they're preteens, teens, a little younger than teen, but they should be accompanied by an adult anyways. Just, you're safer in number. Okay. With that, there's a lot of things with this that upset me. No one could go to the toilet, so they were accompanied by an adult. The counselors wanted to make sure that the other children didn't mysteriously disappear. So that night, a girl named Anishka, it's Aneska. I'm bad with pronouncing names. There's black on my highlighter. Okay. She told one of the counselors, and after a lot of grumbling, the counselors got out of bed. Why are the counselors so mean? They just told them they couldn't go without an adult, and then they're all like, I don't want to go. You shouldn't make the rules if you don't want to follow them. Okay. They got out of bed and agreed to accompany the girl to the toilet. The girl opened the door, and the counselor waited for her outside. So, if the first girl, you waited outside for her, why aren't you waiting outside the stall instead of outside? Is it like a building? You're not telling us how this thing is built. Is it a building with stalls inside of it, or is it just a bunch of stalls on the outside? So what I've picked up from this story, it's not done yet, they're waiting outside the door, outside where the stalls are. That's dumb. If the first girl went missing while the other girl was outside, why aren't you outside the stalls on the inside of that building? If it's even a building at all. Or why aren't you right outside her stall if it's outside? That way you know she's not going missing. It just... a lot of things about that bug me. Okay. Besides that, after a while, the counselor sensed that something was wrong, something was off. Yeah, your guys' attention to children. Okay. And he decided to check on her. He opened the door, peeked inside. To his astonishment, the toilet was empty and the girl was gone. There was a playing card on the floor. It was a Jack of Hearts. Okay. I'm still not sure how these bathrooms are. The police were called and the camp packed back to the camp. And when they arrived, they had a dog with them. The policeman took a pair of Anisha's clothes and went out, and so the dog could sniff up her scent. When the tracker went as far as the toilet, but refused to go any further, it seemed to be afraid of something. All the children called their parents and asked them to go home. Mila managed to contact her parents, but they said they were too busy and couldn't come. If a bunch of children are going missing from this camp and my child's there, I'm going to be like, oh, hell no. I don't care what I'm doing. Whether I'm at work, doesn't matter. I don't give a crap. I'm going to go pick my child up. It just makes sense. No matter how much she begged them, they didn't pick her up. She was left to fend for herself. That's a pair of sucky parents. Okay. Anyway, most of the kids at camp were taken home by their parents. By the end of the day, there were only 7 children left. 3 boys, 3 girls, and Mila. So Mila's not a boy or a girl. Okay. Their parents had been unable to come, and all of them gathered in one cabin to spend the night. As a precaution, they had mascara. As a precaution, 2 of the counselors would also sleep in the cabin to watch over them. All this trouble. Are the police still there? Are the police protecting them? Kids are going missing, and only at night. If anything, I would suspect the counselors, but, you know. probably not them. But anyway, nobody was allowed to go to the toilets outside. If anyone needed to go, they would have to use a porcelain pot that was placed in the center of the room. They'd have to lift the lid, do their business, put the lid back on. That night, Mila woke up and was shaking in fear. She was terrified that she would be next to disappear. She dreaded having to go to the toilet in front of anyone, but eventually all the kids drifted off to sleep. The next morning when they woke up, there were 2 empty beds. 2 girls had mysteriously gone missing. Oh my word, what names I can't pronounce. Lishka and Galena. On the floor lay 2 playing cards, both of them being the Jack of Hearts. Okay. This is where I would suspect one of the counselors. There's 2 counselors. Why aren't they protecting the kid? Okay. The police arrived and began to interrogate the 2 counselors. Yes, at least someone sees what I'm saying. Interrogate the counselors. Sorry, it's moving because I'm trying to grab my lipstick from behind the laptop. Move you back. One of the police decided, after a few hours of questioning, they determined the counselors didn't know anything. Another searched the area, and it was proved to be pointless. They didn't find anything. There were no traces of the missing children, and the police ended up empty-handed. One police officer decided to stay behind to protect the remaining children. Yas! Now, the only ones left were the 3 boys, a girl named Katka, and Mila. When they were going to bed, the policeman came into the cabin, locked the door behind him, and put a chair in front of the door and sat down. He planned to stay awake all night to make sure nothing happened. If this police officer falls asleep or he goes missing, I'm just saying. Anyway. He told the boys they didn't need to worry. The kidnapper was only targeting girls. So we're aware of this. Since when? Okay, but that doesn't make sense. The only ones going missing are girls. But if the boys go missing, that dude's going to feel real bad. How would he know that, though? Unless he was the one questioning him. I got a lot of questions. He said that Mila and Katka were the only ones who were in danger. And if the kidnapper came back, he would probably try to abduct them. The girls started crying, but the policeman assured them that he would do everything in his power to make sure they were safe. Is he the one taking the children? Just saying. In the middle of the night, Katka had to go to the toilet. The police told her to use the pot, but she refused to and began to throw a tantrum. Eventually, the police officer gave in and escorted her to the toilet. He didn't want to let Mila out of his sight, so he told her to come with. He unlocked the door slowly, stuck his head out, looked both ways. Everything seemed quiet. He told the boys to lock the door behind him and cautiously led the 2 girls back to the outdoor toilet. He looked in all directions, making sure no one could sneak up on them. Eventually, they reached the toilet, and the girls were scared. The policeman told them to wait at the door while he checked the stalls. He turned on the flashlights, looked around, and at first seemed normal. But then he heard rustling, and he saw one of the stall doors open creakily. Suddenly, there was a loud hissing sound, and a shadow flew out of the stall. It was a man dressed in a dark red bodysuit and mask. He caught hold of Kata by her hair and started dragging her away. Mila screamed. The police officer protected the girls, but the shadow figure grabbed him by the neck and began to choke him. Gasping for air, the police officer ordered Mila to go back to the cabin and get help. The young girl ran as fast as she could, screaming and shouting. The camp counselors grabbed their flashlight and ran out. The boys in the cabin came running to see if they could help. Mila pointed towards the toilets. When they got outside, the policeman was lying on the ground. There was a strange man standing over him with his hands wrapped around him. Katka was lying unconscious on the ground beside him. The policeman struggled and managed to pull out his gun, pulled the trigger, and the bullet went through the man's shoulder. With a roar, the man let go of the police officer, grabbed Katka's limp body, and took off running. The counselors pursued him with the two boys and Mila close behind. The policeman stood up, took careful aim, and fired at him, but he missed. He could get off another shot, but then the man disappeared into the woods. Everyone started to look for this crazed kidnapper. They scoured the woods and with their flashlights. Mila stayed close to the police officer, and at this point she was crying in hysterics. And all of a sudden, she spotted a trail of blood in the bushes. She pointed out to the police officer, and he told her to keep quiet. Peering behind the bushes, he saw the man was behind the bushes. He saw that there was a wooden hut, camouflaged with leaves and undergrowth. He called the counselors, and together they approached the hut and slowly opened the door. And what they saw inside, they were horrified and disgusted. The dead body of the 5 girls on the walls. I'm going to skip all the gross details. Mila began to cry, and she recognized the girls. It was her friends. And the policeman immediately contacted his supervisors on the radio, and what he found as dawn approached, the woods were swarmed with police officers. They searched and searched, but they never managed to track the killer. The police officer called Mila's parents personally and shouted at them down the phone and demanded that they come and pick up their daughter. Mila was finally able to relax and breathe a sigh of relief as the owners of the camps were forced to close it down and the surviving children went home. In the end, the summer camp was closed down for good. A lot of money changed hands, and the owners had to pay compensation to the parents of the dead girls. The authorities tried to have the whole incident hushed up, but rumors began to spread, and pretty soon it was reported into the tabloid newspapers. The murderer was never caught, and the papers gave him the nickname the Jack of Hearts, and they say he's still out in the woods, biding his time and waiting for more young girls to wander into his clutches. One, Mila has a sucky set of parents. What the heck? Parents don't leave their kids behind. Good parents. You obviously would get the instinct, I gotta pick my kid up. Kids are going missing. I don't want mine to be next. What the hell is going on? Okay, so it wasn't the counselors. The police officer didn't go missing. He almost died. But, you think someone would have noticed this and saw the pattern and been like, no girls allowed? Or he might have started kidnapping the boys. So it's good they didn't find him. They found what he was doing. Or if it was even a he. But what the heck? The parents, that's what irritates me. It's the parents. It's nothing else. Minus the counselors who make these rules and they're all like, I don't want to follow them. What the hell? Why would I want to take you to the bathroom? So like you made the rule. And if there was a guy hiding in the stalls. So another thing. What does this building look like? Is it a building? Are they porta potty like? That's not possible. The police officer went and checked the stalls. So it's like a building. If so, where are the counselors? Why aren't the counselors all like, oh, let's check out this bathroom crap? Oh my gosh. I think that story irritated me. It's weird, but some of the details that it got to me. The parents being bad parents. That's bad parents. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that one upset me deeply. So, there you go. I don't like that story. This one's called The Girl in the Photograph. Let's read that one. The Girl in the Photograph is a creepy story about a boy who finds a picture of a beautiful girl, becomes obsessed with her, and after doing his research, the person that wrote this down says they're pretty sure it originates in Japanese or Korean urban legends. I don't know either. One day, a boy was sitting in his classroom. He was extremely bored and was waiting for the school bell to ring. When he looked up at the window, Something caught his eye. There was a photograph lying on the grass outside. If there's a photograph lying outside, I'm not going to touch it. Sorry, that's just my thing. Let's go over. He ran over and picked it up. I read that line before I said it. But don't pick random things up off the ground. Before anyone else had a chance to see it, turned it over, and he realized it was a picture of an incredibly beautiful girl. She was wearing a white top, a skirt. What the hell's a short? That might actually be a word, and I'm just not sure. Okay. Short. Adjective refers to a person's height. So she's short? Or is the skirt she wearing short? If so, don't put a comma there. A short black skirt. Okay. Now I got that out of the way. I got severely confused. But I'll read it this way. A girl in a white top, a short black skirt, and black tights and black shoes. For some reason, she was holding up 2 fingers. It's not weird. Peace or dude or dude. I have no idea. It doesn't seem weird to me. People do the peace sign every day. And when people take pictures, sometimes they have just 2 fingers. It's not weird to me. But anyway, the girl was pretty, and he wanted to meet her. He showed the photograph to everyone in school and asked if they knew her. Unfortunately, no one could recognize her. That night, he went to bed, placed the photo on his bedside, and went to sleep. Creep. Okay. Around midnight, he woke up, and there was something tapping on his window. He worked up the courage to investigate. He jumped out of bed, went over to the window, opened it. There was nothing. The next day, he showed the photo to his friends and neighbors, and asked if they knew. Everyone said they never met her. That night, he laid in bed, heard tapping on the window again. He looked at the window and made out a figure standing on the other side of the street, but it couldn't be. But mysteriously looked like the girl in the photograph. Clutching the picture tightly, he threw on some clothes. I'm confused. It's fine. I get confused easily. He had his underwear? Are we led to believe that fact? If you're going to tell a story, you need to tell us what someone's wearing. I assumed he already had clothes on. I assumed he had pajamas on. But is he in his underwear? That's the question. Are we led to believe he's not wearing anything? You need to write with detail. I am very bad at writing details in stories too. It's something I get better at. The story has confused me the most. So, anyway, he threw his clothes on, raced downstairs, went out to the front door. As he crossed the street, he forgot to look both ways and suddenly was hit by a car. If I walk outside the door, almost see a car coming. Cars should have headlights on. Is it midnight again? It's night. Cars should have headlights on. People can't see in the dark. Yeah. One, I'd never be obsessed with someone so much that I'm gonna bolt to them. And if they're staring at my house, I'm gonna be like, Mom, there's a creep. This is just common sense, but apparently we throw all that away for scary stories. They're apparently immune to common sense. Got hit by a car. Driver got out of the car to help the boy, but the boy had been killed on impact. That's sad. The driver noticed he was clutching the photo.
How long have I been live reading?
55 minutes. The driver realized the picture was of an incredibly beautiful girl. She was wearing a black top, a short black dress. You don't need a comma. Okay, I'm good. It's a comma. Black tights and black shoes. She's wearing all black. For some reason, she was holding up 3 fingers. Is that the number of victims she has? 2, 3. The boy would be a third, if that theory's right. You don't need a comma. I don't think you do. I'm gonna look that up. So earlier when I was getting confused, short is a word. Like someone is short. An outfit is short. Like I am short. I'm looking at my exact question. You do not need a comma. You cannot use a comma between adjectives. Drop the comma. I looked it up. I didn't want to be wrong and be complaining this entire time for it to be right. But I was right. You don't need a comma. You don't put a comma there. That story is a little creepy. But nothing too bad. I've read a lot of these, but I don't want to read ones I've read before. Let's read a couple short stories. These ones are called short stories. This one's called Bay Window. I'm going to read that one. The Bay Window is a scary story about something spooky when a young girl is left home alone on a snowy winter's eve. Winter's Eve, okay. One cold winter night, a 16-year-old girl named Brittany Snow was home alone watching TV. Her parents went out for a dinner party at a friend's house. It had been snowing heavily all afternoon. Brittany felt nice and snug as she sat on the sofa in the lounge, tucked up under a warm, fuzzy blanket. Okay. She had a warm, fuzzy blanket. By midnight, her parents were still not home. She began to feel uneasy, as any normal person would. She didn't call them in case they thought she couldn't take care of herself. I don't think your parents would feel that if you're worried about them. Okay. The television was in the corner of the room next to a big bay window. She was watching one of her favorite movies, a horror film called Prom Night. It's a 1998 movie. There's one from 2008. Or is it 1980 they're talking about? I don't know which movie they're talking about. But both are a slasher film. But funny enough, in the 2008 one, is the one I just read. Well, let me go back to the top. Is a movie directed by Nelson McCormick, and it says with Brittany Snow. So they might be talking about the 2008 one. I think that's funny. Okay. Well, anyway, bay window, watching Prom Night. Suddenly, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed something moving in the bay window. Through the darkness and the falling snow, she could make out a figure of a man walking towards the window. As he got closer, she was able to make out a face and was filled with horror. A man's walking up to your window. I'm not going to sit on that couch. At all. I'm going to be backing the hell up looking for a phone. To call the police. Slowly, she pulled the blanket aside and began to peer out with one eye. The man was still there. He was just standing there, staring directly at her as the snow fell behind him. Then he reached his coat and pulled something out. It was a long knife. Yeah. Terrified, she pulled the blanket back over her head, hoping the madman would just think it was a pile of blankets sitting on the sofa. You just put the blanket aside and the man is staring at you. He knows you're there. He knows what you're doing. He is looking into your window. You just made that very clear. So that was stupid on her part. And stupid because that has been used way too many times. Way too many times people are like, oh, something will be scary if you definitely put it over your head. And then the madman thinks you're a pack of blankets. No, they're not going to think that. No, if they're staring at you. Okay. She managed to move her hand slowly over to her pocket and took out her mobile phone. You're telling me this girl had her phone this entire time and didn't think to call the police before now? Okay, stories like these upset me where there is detail, but this is stupid. This is stupid. She called the police and the operator goes, what's your emergency? There's a man outside my window and he has a knife. And she sat motionless as she could under the blanket. As the minutes ticked by, eventually she heard sirens outside her door and the police banging on her door. She pulled off the blankets, rushed to the front door, letting the two police officers in and said there was no trace of anyone outside her house. He was right there, she pointed. That's not possible. There couldn't have been anyone staying there. The snow is completely undisturbed. If there was someone out there, they would have left footprints. But he was standing right there, staring at me. I saw him with my own two eyes. You know, your eyes can play tricks on you. Maybe you've been watching too many scary movies. The officer turned to leave when all of a sudden the female officer stopped dead in her tracks. She pulled back the sofa that she was sitting on, and her jaw dropped, and Brittany and the male officer gasped. On the carpet was a trail of wet footprints and a discarded knife. You weren't looking at the man from outside the window. You were looking at his reflection standing behind you. That theme's been used a lot, too. That is stupid on all accounts. But, you know, that's just stupid. It's beyond stupid. I will tell you what, I can notice the difference between a reflection in a window and on the outside. Okay, so that story, it's just cliches and horror. Too many cliches.
Television thief?
Yes. She's talking about her television scene over here. But it's just oh my gosh. It's a bunch of horror movie and story cliches. I think the story irritates me the most. No, I take that back. The last story, the girl in the photo one, that one upset me a lot. There's not a lot of detail. And this one, there's just cliches. The Jack of Hearts, what irritated me about that is the parents are so stupid, but apparently in horror movies, parents are supposed to be stupid. Parents are not stupid. Some parents aren't stupid. What other ones have I read? I forgot the other stories.
Right here.
Yeah, I got a light on.
What are you doing?
I'm finishing a live stream.
When you're done, can you make coffee?
I'll make coffee. My mom has a headache. Well, migraine. So her eyes hurt in the light. Anyway. Oh, what else did I read? I read these creepy stories. I read through these so I can see the ones I read. The Imaginary Friends ones, they're just stories, I guess, and a bunch of people have made stories off of this. Some of them are previous stories that people have talked about, and I have heard of them before. Some of them they're okay. I mean, the Jenny one, that one was pretty good. That one was okay. I think it's weird, or not as much weird as it is interesting, that the little girl of the older sibling, well, the third sister of the older sister, got a friend named Jenny who acts the same. That's kind of weird in an interesting way. But the one with the creepiest one, the one that creeped me out just to read it just a little bit, was the funny face one. For reasons it throws at you what happened without saying what happened, and it can't actually mention the word because YouTube doesn't like it. But of people being strangled, that's kind of creepy. It's weird. Matt, that one, I don't understand. Is the girl being haunted by someone, or what? Or is this the one where he's in the woods? Yeah, that's the one where the girl's all like, he controls the lights. I had to skim through it. Jessica. That's the one I'm thinking of. It's not Jenny. Is it? Oh my gosh, I don't want to skim through it again. Jenny. No, Jenny's the one where the kid goes missing. That one was quite interesting. It's the other one, Jessica. Jessica's the one I found intriguing. It's interesting, and the Jenny one, that one where the cat goes in the basement, doesn't come back up, and where the hell did the kid go? Like, they tell you Jenny went missing after she went into the basement. Did someone kidnap her? Was she secretly murdered? Like what? What happened? Why did the parents just give up so quickly? Do they know she's gone? Are they the ones that got rid of her? I could be just breaking these down too much, but there needs to be detail I need to know. The don't tell anyone his name. That one, really, it's just the theme that a kid's playing with the devil literally is all it's getting at. That's been used a lot. Literally, most of these are just horror cliches, which really, when you're trying to come up with a story and scariness, yeah, sometimes you get those cliches. I will admit, I write scary stories, and I get cliches in mine too, and it's all like, oh my gosh, that's not cool. But like, when something's been used way too many times, I know not to put that in my stories. And pronunciation, the punctuation, not pronunciation. I can't pronounce anyone's name, so. But punctuation's a thing. Even though it had punctuation, that some of it's just not in the right place. Overall, the stories aren't bad. I'm not hating on anyone. These are just my personal opinions. But yeah, they're good stories. Nonetheless, they're really good stories. My sister Elizabeth would like all these. These are meant for kids, so yeah, some of them, they're not as scary as the originals you would read. And some of them are just the originals, so just they're not scary. And The Man in the Reflection. People have made stories like that so many times. It's just It's one of those stories you're like, why? What is the point? What is the point? Like, yeah, I should have seen that coming. But even so, why didn't the man just kill her? He was right there. Pulled out a knife and everything. How did she not hear him taking the coat off? Coats make a rustling sound, or it's more fabric moving and you can hear the fabric. I would hear someone taking something out of their pocket. I'm saying. Things make noise. And also I think the thing is where he walks towards her. I think the one thing that's all like, how she didn't hear him, and if his feet are wet, is it a carpet or is it a hard floor? Because either way, if it's not a hard floor, your shoes are gonna squeak on it. If it's carpet, you're gonna hear the smushing of water. My room is covered in carpet, and my sisters have walked in with wet feet, and you hear the sound of squishy feet, and my floor creaks, and all the floors in this house creak. So that's another thing. Creaks are a thing. Nothing you do is going to stop creaks. The keyhole, I've read that one so many times that it's not scary to me. The lost phone, that one was actually kind of creepy. The fact that her phone was on silent. My dad's phone, when it's on silent, will vibrate. So you can hear the vibrations of it on the shelf. Because he likes to leave it under their television in their room and forget he left it there. But yeah, that one was okay. It was okay. The tuna story. The Imaginary Friends. I should have said that one when I did the Imaginary Friends. I'm confused. Why? That one seemed like it was supposed to be funny more than scary. If you're gonna try to jump scare people with like he ate his imaginary friend, you need some form of build up. There was none of that there. It's just his friend was the size of a thimble, and I started thinking Thumbelina. You know, she's tiny, and then he's all like, "I ate her. She tastes like tuna. Her name is Tuna." But isn't it she? I think it's a she. Yeah, because he ate her. It's a she. But I'm not understanding that one. The girl on the lake, that one was pretty creepy. The thought of a dead child. The thought of a dead child is creepy to me. It's also very, very sad to me. So yeah, that one kind of creeped me out just a little bit, but you know, children. Yeah, it's tuna. Is it supposed to be funny? Because it's under creepy stories. Tuna. Tuna is a food. Why would you name your friend Tuna? Is Tuna an actual name? It is. It is a Turkish name. Okay, so I take that back. It is a name. We don't use it often. It's a Turkish given name and a surname. Okay, it means Danube. It's an old European river. Danube. It's European driven. And means river. I'm even more confused. That's fine. So the stories aren't scary to me. Jack of Hearts, that one irritates me so bad that the parents are that stupid. Especially if you're called twice in a row that girls are going missing. Girls. And your child is a girl. If children are going missing in general. That one irritates me so bad. I can't stand stories like that where horror movies are all like, or stories are all like, Parents are stupid in movies. Most parents aren't stupid. They put their kids first. I think that's what irritates me about this. Is parents oftentimes will put their kids first. I know if me and my sisters were in something like that, my parents are going to be like, oh, hell no, we're coming to get you. But that's my parents. Not everyone is like that. But there, those are the stories. Obviously, a lot of them irritate me. A lot of them confuse me, and apparently punctuation irritates me. Especially when it confuses me. But regardless, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!